Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Series with Kevin, where we add value to people's lives, happening every day at 12 on ebuzzradio.com. The Lunchtime Series is also available on all major podcast channels now, guys. Go and check it out, like, share, and subscribe to it because you're always going to get some really interesting conversation happening right here. Today, we've got the man who helps to conquer their fears, people's fears at least, and achieve their 7th season winning team culture through firewalking and extreme metaphors. He's been with us before, and I was like, we need him back here because he is the Superman of Africa. Mr. Cobus Visser, how are you doing?
Good morning, Kevin. Thank you for having me. Yeah, last time we spoke about my story and my journey.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to our talk this morning. And I think it's important what we're going to talk about. And it's thank you for your friendship and your support. It really appreciate, especially I think during this time, knowing there's people that cares, and even if it's just now and then a reach out, I think that is important.
Absolutely, Cobus. And one of the points of today's conversation was you and I are currently busy in an amazing project. It's a massive project happening in our country where we get to work with teachers and going through a process and a program with them to really changing their mindset and changing how they actually do their lives. How are you, why do you think a program, let's start off there. Why do you think a program like that is so important specifically for teachers?
I think it's in the end of the day, it comes down to self-development. If you don't grow, you're going to die. And the one thing that we found out from these teachers is there's no self-development, self-investment. Let's put it in that way, where you focus on yourself and yourself to grow. So I think first and foremost is to equip the teachers to grow and have a growth mindset, to be able to understand that they are in control of their destiny. And so they should, as they invest in others, the importance of investing in themselves. So I think that is the first part that is important. I think the second part is by investing them, if you make a better person, you get a better team player, you get a better results in the end of the day. So in the environment as colleagues, they can be a better colleague and friend and support system. But also not only that, as they grow in that, they become a better teacher.
Yeah. From my perspective as well, I think what you're saying, around growth mindset, I think one of the themes that I come across within that environment very often is people don't realize they have the permission for themselves to be able to improve their own lives. They have a permission to kind of go, I'm important. I make a difference. I impact this environment. I think it's almost human nature that we kind of just go, well, I have a job, and because I have a job, I'm just here to do my job. And yet how you become and how you personally develop yourself within that environment really speaks to how, the effects and how the environment is going to start playing out. And if everyone does their part, it really shifts the growth mindset within that environment, which really at the end of the day changes how people do their lives. And an environment can impact on a school, which will impact on an environment and a community. And if we have all the schools doing that, it's bound to make a huge impression.
Yeah, but
I really love that.
Yeah, but if you think about it, the teachers have the biggest impact on our future leaders and our future Elon Musks, etc., because they spend more time with the kids than the parents does. So, whatever they go through, they impact our future kids. If they can impact them positively with a growth mindset, imagine what those children can achieve in the long run. And I think this is where we're coming to, is it's a long-term vision. It's not just now for short term, but it's hopefully those teachers that grasp this and applies it. Because here's the thing, knowledge, I have a saying, and you probably have done it as well, knowledge is not power. I was at one school and the tagline is knowledge is power, and I fought with them and I said knowledge, they were mad at me, right? They fought me and say, how can I say that? And I said, well, we can have all of the knowledge in the world. If we don't apply the knowledge, it means nothing. I have a knowledge to have a six-pack, yet I don't have a six-pack because I'm not applying it to exercise every day and eat right. Yeah. It comes down to applying what they learn.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things it's one of my key go-to points because it really sets up the understanding of what the brain's doing in a very good way is the communication model, where we learn, your external event happening in your brain. You go through the filtration system, you have an internal representation. It changes your state, it influences your state, and your state influences your behavior, etc., etc. Part of that, we also learn about our rep system. Our representation, that we call it the rep system. It's a representational system where we actually understand our visual, auditory, kinesthetic more specifically. So talk to me about, just your perspective around the rep system and why this is important, especially, in a learning environment, teaching environment, but also how why that's important for me to know on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that is important is how we interpret information. To give the teachers this tool is to equip them to be even better teachers. And just to give people an idea is that visual is someone that is a dreamer, someone that thinks in pictures, that loves to draw. And think about it. There's, like, I was in school and I was usually the teachers didn't like me. Well, excuse my English, but the idea was every time they would talk, I would draw pictures in my book. I would draw small pictures. Then this is our process, and they thought I was not listening and I was busy with something else. But that's how I was processing the information. And the same, if your kids are doing this, is to understand that that's how they process information. But also, is to adapt your presentation to that. So one part of our presentation is we have photos, we have slides for those visuals, but also as a facilitator, we use the next thing for interpretation, auditory. They love detail, so to give enough detail for them. Secondly is also to not speak in a monotone, but also to use your voice so that you can keep them engaged. And then you get those that are kinesthetic, that needs to feel you, so it's also to then bring in that emotion, take them through the steps, because they, and then we do exercises as part of our presentation to be able to equip it. So imagine as a teacher, applying all of those tools, you just get to your kids, you can impact them so much better. So there is no more kid. If a kid is struggling in your class and the previous year with another teacher they were excelling, then you need to realize, and it gives a teacher to, okay, so maybe the way I'm communicating, the kid is not taking in the information because it's not, his representational system is totally different. And I think this is important. I think it gathers them through the whole communication model. The way we interpret it, the way we delete, distort, and generalize information. I do an exercise with the group. I have a picture with triangles, and I call up the English teacher, right? And I say there's words in it, and it says bird in the hand. To give you an example, and I will just read bird in the hand, and then I will tell them they're wrong, and then everyone will fight with me. How can I say that? It says bird in the hand. I say read every single word separate, slowly, and then they will see it because the brain deleted that information. So the whole process is to understand that how we process information, but also how we present information.
Yeah, and to touch on that point. You mentioned facilitating, you mentioned the importance of how you come across. I've often realized that, and it's something when we went through our training process around this program, some of the feedback that I got was I do everything, a lot of explaining. So I needed to incorporate a lot more than what I was doing in how I was translating that information, which I took because, at the end of the day, you want to walk out there leaving people feeling, man, I really understood what was happening today. I really got it. I really felt it. And, sometimes you put someone in a place like that, or in a position like this, and say, okay, cool, here's the content, showcase this to people. And they come from a strict, certain type of background, and they don't necessarily impact the environment as much as they should. So about being a fantastic facilitator, there's a difference between being a fantastic facilitator and being a coach, being a teacher, being a trainer. Talk to us about what stands out for you in this, because when you're instilling and going through a process like this, facilitating a process is unbelievably important.
Definitely. I think this whole process made me even a better facilitator. And the reason for that is a teacher loves to teach, and they put information out there and they teach the way they want to do it. A coach has never been a teacher or a facilitator, and then they have to process the information because they were helping people on a one-to-one basis. Now they have to give this information across. But I think the thing about a facilitator is the facilitator to read their audience. You need to understand if your audience is not getting it, that you as a facilitator can adapt. For me, it is an adaptation the way I do things. I have brought in stories, and I always wanted to tell stories. And so this has forced me to bring in stories, because in a story, you can also bring across the information totally different to people to process it even more. And I think the power of a facilitator is to use all of these tools. Like you said, I also had one way of presentation. And, at the end of the day, then you start missing the people that are there that are not getting the information. Since I've improved and I adapt the way I facilitate, everyone leaves there as if they've learned something. And I saw the power of that, and I realized this is the importance of giving over information, is to facilitate it. And so basically teachers needs to improve and get that being trained to be more of a facilitator than to be a teacher. And I think that's about, I believe you just said it as well, you did it one way. I think you're more auditory, you love to give information, but then you're missing all of the others that are sitting there that, they don't want the information. You're actually irritating them more. So you need to know when to go into that detail and when not to go into that detail. And you do it by reading the audience, applying what we've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving into another section, we also look at the science of the emotions, and we touch briefly on, how the emotions sort of play out in your mind and how your brain actually starts doing this and kicks into gear. We speak about the amygdala. We look at the reward state, the threat state, and how that sort of reinforces certain brain parts of your language, or your brain language, where your brain starts speaking based on the fact that you're either in a reward state or a threat state. For me, when we go through this part, it really speaks to the fact that we often think that we are just reacting to the world, and we have to we have to make the best of what's, what we sit up with. But part of this is the moment you realize that when you're in a reward state, part of your brain is literally reaching for information. You're more engaged, you're more active. But when you're, in that threat state, part of your brain disengages. You shut down. You don't want to be there. You have a certain set of something that your body starts doing. But the moment I recognize the feeling and the emotion of what's about to play out, I have far more control over my behavior than what I thought I did, right? Tell us, your experience around this, because I think, it's, from dealing with children. I mean, as teachers, I envy what teachers do, because I don't know if I could do it. They have patience and they're angelic, I think. But why do you think this is important for people to know, the importance of how your emotions impact your life?
I think emotions is everything. Emotions is it gives us energy or takes our energy away. It's also our body's way of protecting itself, and it's important to realize. Tony Robbins says, if you want to change how you feel, change your physiology, and you change in an instant. So emotions is the same way. If you want to change from depression to happiness, you just need to change your physiology, change, go into laughter, for example, and or exercise or whatever is needed to change it. So emotions is what guides us. And I think with teachers, to know all about this is to understand how it impacts kids. Because bringing in emotion, so I like to do in my facilitation to bring in a lot of emotions. I say to people, I take people on a roller coaster, up and down, because you connect emotions with events. I play music at my facilitation, every time the same music at certain places, because if they ever hear that song again, it sort of anchors the moment. I have an example, if I take it, my partner the other day, there was a song coming up on the radio, and suddenly emotions came to flooding her, and she remembers the time that the ex left her. She used to cry on this song every single time, so it brought automatically those emotions up. And so it just shows you how powerful we are, that we can anchor our emotions to certain events. Now, here's one thing that I bring in that I teach people. It's also the way we learn. We learn into our emotions. And where's our emotion? So think about it, when kids are anxious and stressed and stuff in exams, for example. Go look at the way they studied. If they look down the whole time, where's your emotions? Your emotions is down here. Think about it when you're sad and depressed. You go into a fetal position. Now imagine you learn in that position, looking down. You learn all of that information that is connected with your emotion. So if you're going through a struggling time at home and all of that, that is where your emotions is. Now you're learning that material, it's connected with that emotions. So the idea is to come, and where you talked about engagement and growth, and you can take more risks, is when you learn emotions, you learn your informations up here. So it's, for me, it's important that people need to understand how we learn, and all of that is how we process. Connecting it with the right music and the way we teach with stories, we connect with emotions, becomes powerful. So I like to say it, whenever you read a book or you study, have it, so you know those desks like this, or you can buy them, learn up here, because suddenly you're connected with different emotions. And this is what people need to understand. Our emotions is what drive us when we wake up, when we have to make decisions and all of that. So yeah, that is sort of how I see it.
And I mean, attached to that, you know, we look at fear, and we also look at the upward, downward spiral of emotions. You know, I do a fun exercise around fear, around sort of connecting to something that's not real. And the moment you showcase and say, well, there's nothing there, there's no fear there, you know, you can see like, oh yeah, you know, actually I've attached so much information around this concept that I'm holding in my head. And the moment I realize there's nothing there, you're kind of going, oh, yeah, there's nothing there. It's all just happening in my head, you know? And, you know, absolutely, fear in itself is when you're physically being attacked. I mean, there's a fear there. So run away.
That's danger. That we connect, it's more danger than, yeah.
But when I've got fear of the future, or fear of, you know, COVID, or, you know, the future of something that's not actually happening to me in this moment, we often as individuals get stuck there. We almost live out something that's really not happening. And the most significant thing that I've learned, you know, from being an NLP practitioner and understanding how the brain puts information together, is nothing is happening to you in this moment other than this moment. Right. And, you know, when my brain first connected to that, I was like, yeah, how strange that we actually we'll create this drama, we'll create this moment in the future, or this unexpected urgency that's over there. And that's not happening to you right now. This right here is happening to you, right? And I think it's a significant part of really understanding that fear can debilitate you completely, but yet nothing's actually happening to you.
Well, it's the same. You know, I think it's with all type of emotions that you have to process. Is that what if, you know, what if this happened? What if, you know, this morning exactly I went through it. I have so much to do for 2 weeks for my retreat that I'm hosting, and I'm just constantly, I must do this, I must do that, and I'm just building the anxiety, and I'm like, but that's in the future. Let me focus. Okay, what can I do today to make it easier? So just by refocusing me, like you said, just in present moment, I forget about all of that anxiety. I just need to know, if I tick all of the boxes today,
yeah,
it will fix itself. So I love what you say about it, and I think that is where the power lies, because we can, it's not disarm. Well, what will you call it? We disable ourselves by just living in that future state.
So, I mean, one of the other wonderful techniques that we use in the process is the drama triangle. And I've spoken about the drama triangle on the show before, but I love this so much that, you know, because when you really understand what the drama triangle is doing, I often look at myself kind of going, sure, am I part of drama right now? Is this drama playing out in front of me? I'm like, if it is, I'm like, I want to step out of that, and I want to have a complete exit strategy from the drama. And just to preface this, guys, the drama triangle is very much based in victim, rescuer, and persecutor. The persecutor forever creates a victim. The victim is always going to be a victim, and the rescuer is always there rescuing the victim. And either way, whatever place, an option or a position you're playing in that triangle of things, you're part of the drama. What is significant about this is, from a rescuing perspective, you think, I'm doing something, I'm helping, I'm rescuing someone. That's one of the things that stand out with the teachers quite specifically, because they instinctively rescue a lot of the time. They're in rescue mode. And the moment you kind of go, but is this useful? They all have a moment of like, not sure now, right? Speak to us how you use the drama triangle as well, and sort of what's the results that you've experienced around this.
Yeah, I think for most people is to become consciously aware that we are playing through all of these drama triangle in our daily lives, wherever, and it's all, we like it. And I think one thing to realize it is draining. It takes your energy away. It makes you tired. And it comes down to more empowerment, is to become consciously aware, as like you said. And I think it's to notice the moments that it is happening, that it's rather to focus on how you can get out of it. So in the beginning, for me, it's to say, okay, this is what we do, but let's look at what empowers us, what can give us the tools to get out of it. So like you said, that we can step back and look at this whole, so becoming like an observer, look at this as a whole and say, okay, what do I need to change? Am I playing the rescuer? Am I the victim or the persecutor? And then it's the most important is to flip that coin. And this is where, for me, the aha moments come, is where the victim needs to realize, how can I become the survivor? How can I take accountability and change that I'm going from victim to survivor? But like you said, with teachers, I think the most important is to realize that they are actually coaches. They're not there to rescue people. The rescuer becomes a coach. It's where I need to coach the kids. I need to coach my colleagues. I need to give them the tools. And this is where a coach comes, doesn't do it for you. They just give you the tools and they teach you. They facilitate you to do it, and the persecutor, for me, the persecutor is a lot when they transform to the challenger, for me, becomes a lot like the coach in a sense. It's a close in betweener. And I think this is where it comes. So it is more empowerment. So getting them to have that aha moment that we are playing this. And then secondly, to realize that we have the power to flip that.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the key point of we have the power to flip it. And the fact that we can move from being a rescuer into a coach, or from a victim moving into a survivor, being a persecutor, being a challenger. The fact that we can flip those scenarios and actively be involved with approaching a scenario differently literally means that you're actively involved in disengaging with drama and rather empowering yourself to the next level, really. We also look at something that also Tony Robbins speaks to, is state, story, and strategy, where we have these three, sort of the three S's. And for me, working through this with the guys is, for me, it's always a case of, you have to get your state. What is your state saying? Because when you know about the state, you're probably going to understand what's about to play out in this environment for yourself. And the moment you are more aware of that state, I mean, we look at the firewalking that you do, priming that state and getting your body into a state to kind of go, okay, cool, this is the thing we're doing. And part of your body really goes there, and suddenly your body kicks into gear, and you have a whole brain shift and a whole move with how this moment plays out. And suddenly you've literally shifted, and that's all happening literally in your head. So, I mean, how do you apply? I mean, how do you apply the three S's, the state, story, and strategy?
Yeah, I think that is the most important for us, especially when it comes to the story we tell ourselves, is to realize what voices we are listening to ourselves. Is it the story that is empowering and is like believes in you, that gets you to take action, or is it the story that is disempowering? So I use it a lot the way I start the morning. So when they would come into the room, they would be within a state that is like, I don't want to be there. It's like closed. It's like they don't even greet me. Some schools, they don't even greet me. It's like,
I don't want to be here.
I don't want to be here. And so what I do, to give you an idea, is so I do the first part of it, the introduction, why we are there. So I don't even introduce myself in the morning.
Yeah.
And I just start the day with going through what's the information, what's the pillars, and all of this. Why is this so program, so that they think it's going to be like a normal training session they have done before.
Yeah.
And so before I then get to the self-development part of the manual, I decide to chase them out. I say, you guys, your attitude stink, go out. And then you must see their attitude there. So they go stand outside. And so after a few minutes, I would go and say, when you come in, I'm going to play a song, you're going to dance. And so when they come in, I get them to dance. So I would lead the dance, get them to do the Macarena, do the twist and stuff. And then I would tell them, go sit in a big state. And by doing that, suddenly it changes. And to make them realize how important is your state, the way you approach, because suddenly their state is differently, the story they're telling themselves is differently. And, and then it comes to the strategy. And this is where we as facilitators come in, is to say, what is the strategy we're going to follow today to be able to give us the results? So suddenly they are more focused. So just connecting those two dots to each other, they understand the power of the right state of mind, because with the right state of mind, you can tell yourself the right story and you can create the right plan.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. And I when I start the mornings as well, I started off with your spirit animal, description of yourself, and what your name is. And you have to get up. Everyone has to get up. We play music and we're like, okay, cool. Now go and speak to someone and say hello to someone you haven't greeted yet. Tell them who you are, what your spirit animal is, and greet with your, with your COVID greeting, with your elbow, your foot. And you have to speak to people you haven't said hello to. And invariably, there's so many that don't greet each other. You're like, no, go. Then we take at least 5 minutes to just create that bit of a vibe. But it does, it shifts that moment for them coming to a training thinking, and then after the training, someone said to me, this weekend said to me, we were so negative about coming to this training. We actually thought that, it's going to be the same old that, we always get offered. And I'm leaving here today completely different and changed based on the fact that you made this day really, really different for us today. And, it's a completely different thing that we expected. And I was like, well, that was the point. Because if we just did the same old thing, you wouldn't listen. You wouldn't hear it. You wouldn't learn anything. So, and then we'll move into, and I just want to cover values and your highest purpose, and just end off with the last few. But I mean, values. I mean, we know values. People speak about values often. People speak about value and the importance of it. And, for me, it's always a case of asking, do you understand your value? Do you really know what that value looks like, that value behaves like? What does it feel like when you're experiencing? How is your body connected to a value in the first place? When we go through a bit of the values exercise, and I just ask, so tell me why excellence is part of your value. And, when it is someone's highest value, they'll just tell you, they'll talk and say, well, this and this, and, I experienced this, and this is how they'll just have language for it. But, when people sort of, I've also experienced where people kind of go, courage is a good value. So maybe I should have courage. I should be courageous. And he's like, but is it actually your highest value? Is it part of your value system? Do you really? And very quickly, they'll want, to have courage as their highest value, but yet it's not really, because they have the idea of what it could be. And I always connect those dots for them to really understand, how is your brain playing out? What feelings are you attached to it? When you recognize your value, how does it play out in someone's behavior? Like, how do you connect all of that? Because the moment you have that, you actually know how your value is playing out in that environment. You kind of go, oh, wow, now I'm actively involved in my value. I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. I know what it behaves like. And suddenly they have more idea of what that value is for them as an individual. Why do you think, or why can you share with us about the importance of values?
Values is important. It keeps everything together. Think about a coffee cup. The cup is the values. It keeps everything together that we put in, and it holds it. And it's like you said, I think the most important with your values is to understand, what does that value represent for you? A lot say honesty as a value. And then why honesty? Do you really want honesty in your life? And I think that is to question your values. And secondly, when you describe what that value means for you, is then to use someone similar in the group and say, okay, so someone said courageous. what does it mean for you? How does it represent? How does it mean for you and represent? And then to make them realize that both of them have a different interpretation about what courage is, or what integrity is, for example. And I said, that's why the company that we are working with, they have an explanation of the values, is to understand this is what it means for us, and this is when you will know if you live it out, or for us to know when you live it out. And I think that is important, is to understand, you know, how people can live it out, because values is what keep family together, it's what keeps everyone together. So I love to bring in this quote, because this quote basically represents this whole training that we're going through from beginning to end. And it's the quote by Gandhi. It says, everything starts with the beliefs. Our thoughts, our words, everything that we're talking about, our actions, that becomes our habits, and then ultimately becomes our values, and then leads to our destiny. So if you understand that training for the whole day, values is the last integral part of all of it that allows us to live our destiny, and it keeps everything together. So for me, values is important. I always also recommend to people, you shouldn't have more than 5 values. And then everyone asks why, and then I use the example of, you know, if I had to ask you, name me quickly all of the makers of running shoes, and then people will start. The first 3 is the easiest, 4 a little bit shaky, 5 they will get, and then they get blank. Some would get to 7. So they found that the maximum people can recall like this is 7. The average is about 5. And it's just to realize that don't make it too difficult for yourself, because one value can maybe represent different other values. So if you want to say honesty is a value, isn't maybe integrity that encapsulate honesty? Because do you really want me to be honest with you, to say you're fat, you're ugly today? Do you really want that? Because I also use the example of lawyers that were stressful and worried and stuff, and they didn't understand why all of their staff were like that. And we went through their values, and their highest value was honesty. Now, our perception of lawyers, you can't be honest. You have to protect the whole client. So they couldn't live by it. So it was difficult because it was clashing with themselves, their internal values. By changing it to integrity, suddenly the whole mood and everything changed in the company, because suddenly I need to have integrity. I have to make the right choices. I have to make sure it, you know, have integrity in all the choices that I make. And suddenly the mood changes. And this is how powerful values are.
And again, just to reiterate, you know, if like you're saying, you know, with the lawyers, if your values are not in alignment and you do not understand what the values represent, you probably will have internalized conflict, or you might actually have resistance with someone. And there's just this constant resistance that you're not even aware of why it's there. And if you really look deeper, you kind of look, oh, okay, well, we don't have the same value system.
And that's why values is so important in the family. So
yeah, and relationships and colleagues, and really understanding it. Yeah. Higher purpose. We look at higher purpose as well. And when you go through this process with people, I don't know about you, what you've discovered or what you've experienced with it, but when you go through the highest purpose process, and it's a process of just chunking information down to understand where the root of why you do what you do is there. And I always find that, you know, going through a process like this with the teachers so far, they're almost dumbfounded that is their purpose. They kind of go, is that really my purpose? I can't, like, it really, like it's almost like they completely disassociated from what it is their purpose could be. And then the more you get to it and the closer it gets, they're actually shocked themselves that they're going, this is my purpose. So, wow, this is really, and you can they sit there and they suddenly have this brain processing going on, and you can actually see their heads so busy. And it's a beautiful thing to recognize. But speak to us about purpose.
It's amazing to see when they get an aha moment. But one thing that for me that is realizing about finding your higher purpose is also what you really want more in your own life. You know, and we can only give what we have, or if we want more of something, we need to give it. And realizing when they get that aha moment, and then going a little bit deeper with some of them, is to actually realize this is actually what I want more in my own life as well. And this is why it's driving me to as a purpose to be able to get it, you know. So for me, to give you an example, my driving value is hope. to have hope. And this is now what drives me to give hope to others, because I'm looking for hope, with all of my challenges in my life. And as I explain it, and I think the aha moment to realize, like the one was love, and to realize he actually needs love. Because the whole day looking back, I could bring it back to what's his experience. And that aha moment is like, yes, I want more love. It's driving me, but I'm not even giving love to myself first. And that aha moment is, so it's just amazing to see that people realize that is what a higher purpose is that one thing that drives you.
That's beautiful. So true. Cobus, before we end off today, I just want people to, because I know that you are instrumental in using the power zones. Tell us what a power zone is. How do we use a power zone, what it is, and what it does for us? Because we use the power zones within this training, and it's phenomenal. And but you tell us what it is.
It's like in anything. Our physiology is connected with all of our learnings and what we do. And I think for me, the power zones is also a moment of anchoring a certain, connecting your emotion, because it's, again, like we talked earlier about emotions, connecting your emotions with a thought process that you're having and anchoring that moment so that you can always recall on those high emotions and peak state. So power zones for me has helped me a lot in my life, especially when I have to go before on stage. So what it is basically recalling a past success that you've experienced. What was your emotions like, your attitude, your thought process, etc., and anchoring that moment when your emotions is the highest. Now, anchoring is a physical process. It's similar like listening to the right song or music where you anchor that moment. So one is maybe anchoring it as a fist or touching a knuckle. So you're anchoring. So basically, you're connecting your mind with that highest emotion. So the power zone just becomes a physical exercise for the people to understand and let them take action, a movement, instead of just sitting down and doing it. So you're using the whole body in that process. So you connect with something in the past where they have experience, where they've achieved it. You think about in the future where they want to achieve something, and you connect with it and bringing them back to the moment and to the present. And so this is where the power lies. It's just a moment of anchoring. Power zone is also a safety bubble that you can understand, so that you have something to focus on. And one thing about what we teach is what you focus on, energy flows towards that. So you're focusing on this area, and basically you step on it. So one thing as a facilitator, we then can use that whole moment to connect what we want to connect, have them breathe in, have them follow. But for me also, what we don't understand is we connecting the colors. We're actually anchoring the colors to also that moment. So every time they're going to see that exact color, it's actually also just an anchor, because people don't always apply an anchor here, but that's also an anchoring moment.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, I mean, if you could leave us with the summing up of why personal development and coaching is so important, Cobus, what would you leave with the audience today?
I leave them with the quote of Gandhi, and to realize we are in charge of our destiny. Everything you've created is destiny. But to change our destiny, we first need to change our beliefs. We have to challenge our beliefs about life, about us, about the economy, everything that we believe, because our beliefs have been formed since we've been young. So we have to challenge that first. So this is what self-development helps. Then it leads to our thoughts process. What do we think about in a daily process? So to understand how the mind works and the power of the mind, so that we can conquer it and we can tame it to our advantage. The next is then to lead to our words, to understand how we can use language to impact people around us and impact ourselves as well. That leads then to our actions, because we need to understand the actions we take on a daily basis influences our future. And remember that if we do it consistent enough, it becomes a habit. We don't have to think about it. We can just automatically do it. So it's to create all of these small habits in your life. So you have to go out and create these habits. Those habits then will ultimately become our values. And to understand, by following this process, we change our destiny. You know it. You never thought in your life that you're going to do what you do now. But it all started somewhere where your beliefs were challenged and you went on this journey. And that whole quote is my life.
Yeah, amazing. And before we end off today, and thank you for having this chat with us. You have a program coming up at the end of the month, and you are busy with some stuff. Tell us all about that. So if we want to find out more, where can we go? Check it out.
Okay. Yeah. So end of the month, I do a certification program. It's called the Empowerment Coach certification. So it's for people. It's actually vice versa. So I have people coming that are on corporate that just to come for it's like a retreat, going through processes. And then there's others that wants the certification. So what we teach is people how to do fire walking, glass walking, board breaking, to do all of that activities by themselves. So some of the guys that is coming is coaches that comes to get this training to be able to bring it into their training. So like you would be hopefully one day be one of those ones coming to it, because it will give you those extra tools and activities that you need that you can incorporate into your training. And then what we do is also we have a short NLP life coaching certification for people to experience, and then also Reiki level 1 and 2. So what we do is we basically equip you with all of that, and then we have 12-month coaching part of that, and we teach people also marketing yourself and presentation skills. So basically those who come and gets that all in a box to be able to go and be even better than where they were. But also then there's corporate people that are coming that just wants to come and do the experience. Because to give you an example, on the last night we walk 108 times over the fire. It's the most amazing night. But then there's breath work, we do a lab room. So it's a spiritual, so we say it's a body, mind and spiritual journey that you're going on. And yeah, life will never be the same again. And if you want to know more, just go connect with me. It's Cobus with a C, Visser. And my website is also .com.or.za. So you're most welcome to connect with me. This one is fully booked. So the next one is 6 to 12 December. And every 3 months after that.
Amazing. Guys, go and check it out. And all these details will be in the description boxes below. Cobus, thank you so much for chatting. Thank you for your insight and your wisdom and your input. Absolutely love it. And have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. And thank you for your time.
And you. Cheers.